Hey everybody, live from my living room. Um, Nobody watching, but that's okay. Let me pull up the comments, live chat. Hopefully it scrolls up as people comment. Um, this is a response to Robert Wallace's response to me on Second Amendment and gun control, and my uh, suggestion that maybe we try armories as a means of gun control. Um, because of an experience I had overseas where I saw it used working for a different culture whereby um, people were allowed to own firearms, but they had to be kept in a safe place. And the place that I saw had been an armory inside of a police station. And I saw a farmer able to check them out at will. No, it wasn't just that country that has that kind of gun control, because guns have uses beyond just protection. Vermin control, as far as like scatter guns, is a thing that a lot of countries have allowed as far as an exemption from uh, gun control laws that they have. But um, like Robert Wallace, I actually don't feel like gun control laws will work in America, in particular, because of our culture, but also those that we tend to enact are useless, or near useless at combating the real problems that we have with gun gun violence. Um, so yeah, he shot his video live, but he doesn't have the ability to live stream like I do. So if some of you chat in the middle of this, I will be looking at all the live chat, and it'll pop up in front of me. Um, Smartphones are awesome. Um, so yeah, I don't like him. I don't like that there have been gun control measures like how many uh, bullets are allowed in a clip, because uh, I don't see that as attacking the larger part of the gun violence issue, um, which has nothing to do with quote unquote assault rifles. I actually, if I were to start, with what I could with the armory system that I would propose, I would start looking to restrict handguns far more than any other kind of assault weapon, because those are the things that have been causing the most violence and homicides and crime statistics. So um, my approach there is then really based on crime statistics, and not so much on what are our rights supposed to be, uh, what did our founding fathers say, um, shall not be infringed, should be etched in stone forever and ever, amen. No. I think of our laws as being living, and we should enact the laws that we are going to be living with. We're the ones who are alive now, not those dead fuckers, right? So we should have a living constitution. We should have the ability to amend it. And if there are things about it that are hurting us now, we should change it. Ironically, Robert Wallace has said, one of the purposes for all of us having weapons is the ability to overthrow a tyrannical government. Well, if we have a government that is not protecting us from something that we all feel is a major threat to us and there are too many people dying from it, then we have the obligation to overthrow that government. And those who are against gun violence have chosen to not use guns, ironically, to enact laws for their safety. Instead, they're just trying to vote for the politicians that will represent them well and start good control measures, you know. And unfortunately, nothing really good has come out of the gun control measures that they have enacted because they're afraid politically of things that would actually bring about change. And that's why I was throwing something out there that is a solution that people have not thought about at length, and it hasn't been part of the discussion because restricting clips has done nothing to stop handgun violence. Uh, Restricting bump stocks has done nothing to reduce the largely handgun based violence that we face downtown here in Denver, right? So um, basically, uh, the politicians that lean to the left that represent me the most are afraid of seeming racist and trying to take away the guns from gang members downtown in Denver, and so instead they have targeted what's safe. Oh, white people guns. The sportsmen that own those big rifles with the big clips and the you know the bump stocks and all the different gadgets that they can put on their assault rifles, but what they should be demonizing is the assault handguns that actually show up in the FBI homicide statistics as killing the most people. So when they don't attack the right type of gun and they're just attacking the type of gun that's used in those mass shootings that get all the attention, whereas the you know the black on black crime it gets no media attention and so many people are dying. I really see them as kind of ironically racist. You know, they're unwilling to deal with that problem because the wrong kind color people are dying. You know, so I'm worried about anyone dying, and any gun control measures that I want to see enacted should look at the statistics first, be based in a sound grounding of you know where these numbers are coming from, and then attack the biggest problems first. And I know uh, that it's not going to be 100% effective, and it could actually hurt some people in some situations. Robert Wallace brought up an example of uh, the Sandy Hook shooter was able to kill his mom and then get to her gun, which was locked up. And yeah, that that's not going to stop the Sandy Hook shooter because he killed his mom and got into her locked gun cabinet and got all the guns he needed to shoot up a school. Are you saying that having laws making it so that people have to have a system to lock up their guns at home or they have to put them in an armory would be ineffective because one really motivated adult man was able to kill his mom and take her key to her gun cabinet and go get some guns and shoot something? I think, yeah, you're going to have certain case studies where it wasn't effective. But if you try it and you see a lowering of gun related deaths because children were not able to get access to these guns, because people's access to these guns was a little bit more restricted, and you see these murder rates lower, I'm saying maybe you don't understand how it's going to work, and maybe nobody does. But not everything that science brings us is intuitive. Sometimes you do something that doesn't seem like it's going to have that much of an effect, and it has the greatest effect, right? And you don't have to completely understand it to see the proof in the pudding, which would be the murder statistics going down. So, uh, I don't know that I would do outright gun bans, but I know that whatever restrictions that I'd be more in favor of from my politicians would target primarily right now handguns against assault rifles. Leave those assault rifles like where they are, because the bigger problem is not being addressed by uh, attacking assault rifles. Just the problem that makes headlines every now and again when there's a mass shooting, that would be addressed, but you're not addressing the majority of murders. So um, I would want those style of guns to be legally held in armories and checked out when needed. And if you wanted out of those requirements, I would want reasons documented, maybe the requirement that people have to have concealed carry permits in order to circumvent that, because then they would have had the required training to be gun safe. Stricter background checks. Once somebody gets a concealed carry permit, then maybe more regular psychological screenings of those people. All of these things I'm okay with. And as a gun control measure, I would also say jobs making programs is a good start, and just mental health access for everyone. I consider those to be anti gun violence measures when you are uh, attacking the impetus for those kind of things. So in the chat, let me see. Poseidon Kikladon says, "How many illegal fireworks have you heard tonight?" Uh, Here in the Denver area, there was actually like a tornado warning today, and there was a hailstorm and a thunderstorm, and it didn't stop those who were wanting to do fireworks. Um, and we had, like, those traffic signs that'll they're programmable and they can say anything, like move to the right and stuff. Uh, we had a couple of those on major streets in Denver saying, "Hey, fireworks are illegal in Denver this year." Um, Poseidon also says, "Gun control will never happen in America. Who are we kidding? LOL." Um, Maybe a few restrictions will happen, but I do agree with you that gun control won't. Um, yeah, I just don't feel it. But what restrictions we do enact, I really want them to be effective. And if they're not, we should revisit them and then repeal them and then try something else. And by effective, I don't mean effective at removing guns from people. I mean effective at reducing the amount of needless homicides, right? Self-defense, self-defense deaths related to firearms, we'll leave those alone. Just the homicides, the crimes of murder committed by largely handguns, I want that to be addressed by whatever is done, right? Um, let's see. And if we can't control it 100%, at least we can put some sort of restriction in place that reduces the annual amount. Okay. And I realize that in certain situations, you're not going to be able to stop someone from doing that. Okay, I just want to see a reduction in the rate. I'm willing to try strange things. Let's see. Why do you think Joe Biden is under the delusion he's running for president in 1977? Is there any medication for his condition? Um, I'm surprised that Bernie and Joe Biden are in the race. Um, at the debates, Joe Biden, to me, looked like he was wearing as much makeup as you would put on a dead, embalmed cadaver for a viewing right before a funeral. Like, seriously, look at how much makeup was caked on Joe Biden to make him look TV presentable. Um, Bernie looked old, but at least Bernie was more lifelike for being au naturel. Joe Biden, seriously, like we make fun of the president for being Cheeto colored, right? Joe Biden had this eerie look to him from having too much makeup caked on. Um, let's see. Is it snowing in Colorado? Somewhere. Right now, yes. We have elevations where any sort of storms that roll through like this will put snow down. And we've had a lot of snow this year. Um, where I am in particular, no, there was a hailstorm and then it was followed by rain. Let's see. And the hail was about that big. It wasn't, and there wasn't a lot of it. Did you see the story about annoyed people throwing rent scooters into rivers and lakes in cities with the program LMAO? Yeah, I've seen that. And also, when I was out trying to charge these scooters, like the last known location of some of these scooters that was on my app on the phone was actually right in the middle of a river or a body of water. So not only like have I seen like videos of kids, doing it as pranks, I've seen it uh, just on the app. Like if you want that scooter, get some scuba gear. Uh, Rubber Wilbur says the reason everyday civilians should be allowed to military guns because the founding fathers wanted Americans to be able to defend themselves against foreign enemies if our military was deployed. Um, I can't say that that was all of the founding fathers' reasonings, but I will say that when I was a kid watching the original Red Dawn movie with Patrick Swayze and the Wolverines, I found it to be uh, very out of touch with the realities of America because no other country would, in their right mind, want to try to occupy America. There are too many guns in the hands of civilians. We are not Japan. If our president, our entire Congress, everyone were lined up and executed, do you think that we'd just be submissive? Do you think that two nuclear weapons would be able to make us submissive to an invading force? No, that's not our culture. We would be doing guerrilla warfare and taking pot shots uh, at our oppressors forever. For at least generations. Much more like the Middle East. Anyways, uh, let's see what else you got. Liz Reptile says nature's fireworks. LOL. Yeah, storms are nature's fireworks. Rubber Wilbur says also, the founding fathers wanted everyday citizens to have matching firearms to the military against the government in case they needed to overthrow the government if they were tyrannical. Um, I've already addressed that point a little bit, but what do you do when the tyranny is a president who didn't have the popular vote and only used a 200-year-old electoral college system in order to exploit that in order to get the presidency, and we now have a presidency who was voted in by less than a majority of people and will not address the fact that people are dying from guns uh, in a way that is any more meaningful than any other politician. What do we do? Because if we're about gun control, we're not going to uh, use guns to oust him, because that would be, retarded. Let's see. A 22 caliber handgun will not be able to overthrow anything. You know what? Uh, Maybe not. If 22 caliber weapons were those that were killing the most people, then I would attack them, and not even understanding how it was that someone was able to kill people with a 22 because they're so low power. But I'm not about going with my gut feeling on these things. I'm about looking at the available evidence. What is killing people? Let's do something to restrict that, right? Leave the shotguns alone, leave the assault rifles alone, attack what is killing the majority of people with gun violence with some restrictions. And even the restrictions should be, whatever odd thing that works based on the numbers, based on the results we get, not what we think in our gut some people 200 years ago meant when they wrote something. Let's do stuff that makes sense for us. Um, Poseidon says America has a 500-year supply of guns as it is. Control has always been a pipe dream. I don't know uh, what that even means as far as a 500-year supply. Hopefully, that wasn't a real statistic based on something. Hopefully, you're just like, you know, exaggerating for a point. But like, how many bullets are you supposed to shoot in a year? Because I think I'm behind. Let's see. Liz Reptile says Biden was flat out Krylon. Ah, he was. He was. You know, they should get James Charles to do his makeup. Then he might look at least entertaining. Um, when Bernie Sanders said he would raise the middle class's taxes to pay for universal health care, college for all, and to pay college debt, he lost the election. It will follow him. I agree with uh, Kyle Kalinski's framing of it that because we are mandated to buy into health insurance in one form or another, that is a form of private tax. And so we should look at it more like we're just taking taxes that you were paying into this one option for healthcare, and we are uh, creating a system where you pay a little bit less in taxes to have this other system. If he would frame it that way, he might be able to win the hearts and minds a little bit more. Just saying that you're going to pay more in taxes but less overall because you aren't paying for those large health insurance bills. It just doesn't ring as good as, you know, thinking of mandated health care is kind of like a tax. Let's see. Liz says her parents are in Colorado near Colorado Springs. Um, well, hopefully they didn't get hailed on today. Uh, What are they doing here? It's no place for lizards. Liz says, I say we get tanks. Actually, if you go to Rocky Mountain gun owners, the uh, the biggest gun lobby in Colorado, the president of it has an anti-tank cannon that you can pull around like a trailer with a truck, and it's like a 50 millimeter cannon. And yeah, he hasn't killed anyone with it, and the statistics bear out that people can own those things and use them responsibly and never commit homicides. So yeah, um, when's the last time you heard of somebody killing a whole bunch of people with a tank? I did hear of one instance where a guy fashioned a tank out of a bulldozer by welding sides to it, and then he went through his town like plowing into the bank and stuff, but he didn't have that actual like cannon on the top. He just like welded the bulldozer into a makeshift tank just to be able to ram a couple buildings down his main street. Uh, you can find footage of that on YouTube. But I've never seen somebody going through the streets with a tank uh, killing anyone. I don't know if that there's any yearly statistics for that. As long as people aren't dying or like losing a lot of property to these things, maybe we should put our attention to the places where people are dying. You know, that's where I'm at. Follow the trail of the death numbers. Um, Rubber Wilbur says, but the Electoral College's law, Trump didn't change the law. Yeah, I think everyone who campaigns in just the states that matter because they're closest to being flippable in order to play the Electoral College rules, I think they're playing the game instead of uh, trying to get the popular vote and the Electoral College vote along with it. They're trying to eke out wins and keeping platforms that keep us divided so that like they only win as many votes as they narrowly need to win the electoral college, and so that tends to keep America divided on issues like 50-50 because of this whole two-party system that really isn't codified in our legislation, but because of our election processes, we have uh, two ruling parties. Um, I think we should scrap the electoral college and go to runoff elections like other countries have, so that we can have more political parties actually get some clout and membership, like the Libertarians, the Green Party, the uh, whatever party. Let's see. Robert Wilbur says that founding fathers wanted states to have equal rights so that a larger state doesn't, population wise, doesn't control what other states do. And what I have to say to that is what we are now finding out is that some people get really pissed off when uh, instead of people getting a vote and having their votes mean more, we have states with a lot of empty land where their votes for the people who actually do live in that state have more power because there are less people uh, voting for a seat that has the same amount of power as a state where there are millions of people um, represented by each senator. So, yeah, people should have votes. Empty land, not so much. Exiled says, "Hola, people. I've been on for 30 minutes, and I actually only meant to be on for 15. I'm sorry, you guys. I was trying to make this quick. Uh, and now I've got 11 people trying to chat and talk to me. Let's see. This says she's got to go to sleep. Yeah, big hugs back. Let's see. Spurgleberry Farm. That name sounds familiar. So a guy in Southern California did a tank run. Not sure if he killed anyone, just a lot of damage. Okay. Uh, News to me. Handgun violence, not so much. Happens on a daily basis. Uh, yeah, Liz says that you can't own tanks because they fuck up the streets. Actually, you're right. Tanks need shoes on the treads if you want to not fuck up the streets. Also, they are way too heavy for some streets that have sewage lines underneath them. So you would only have to be able to do certain streets because they're so heavy in a specific spot. It's the same way that you don't want to have women with stilettos walking over your marble floor. Um, let's see. Let's see. What time is it? So it's 12:57. I'm only 3 minutes behind on the comments. Thank you. Let's see. Yes, Biden looked like a cadaver. And Trump only lost the election by 5 million votes. U.S. population is 350 million. Yeah, um, it's stupid to yell at the people who voted for Trump when there were so many more people that you could yell at that just didn't vote. Uh, Hunley wants me to say, promise I won't start campaigning on TikTok. TikTok. I couldn't even make a good, valid argument for my position, really, in the last 30 fucking minutes. How am I going to do it in 15 seconds? You know? Um, I'm not saying that the tactics that I would use to enact gun control to lower those death numbers are the things that would work. If over, say, a 5 year period, the things that I am suggesting did not work to reduce the murders, I would want them repealed and I would want to try something else. Whatever seems like it might have a chance at working, even if it's not uh, something that looks like it's going to have a big impact. I just want to see the results come down. Rubber Wilbur wants there to be campaign finance reform. Uh, every time we've had campaign finance reform, we've had workarounds like super PACs. And uh, I don't think that that's the answer because I'd rather just a campaign finance reform where whatever a candidate receives from these corporations, we have to know upfront, regardless of the weird way that it got there, and then just let them raise money as much as they want because at least then we know what was given. What we have now is a lot of dark money hidden in ways where they are working in collusion with the campaigns. It's just a one-sided collusion because the campaign itself can't look like it's being uh, in control of those other pots of money. So they basically try to just pick up on cues and maybe talk behind closed doors. But I would rather have all of that on the table at this point because it's failed. And if we get to the point where we have publicly funded elections and they're only allowed to raise a certain amount, like they can't raise any amount over that, then what's going to happen is because we still have corporations having freedom of speech and money being speech, they could still talk about issues instead of the candidate, right? But unfortunately, we associate candidates with these issues so much, and all they have to do is pick the issue that is important to that corporation, then you'll know which candidate that they are trying to back when they're just talking about that issue with a commercial. And they could even create an entire TV show, which is really just trying to change people's view of a certain culture, like, say, the fracking industry backing a TV show about uh, oil rigs and drilling for oil, and then getting Don Johnson from Miami Vice to be the star of it. And that's a real fucking thing. So, like, they are affecting our elections by funding in weird ways the entertainment that we get to show their industries in positive lights. So, um, yeah, same thing with healthcare. Let's see. That's why I like the show New Amsterdam, because it's like the show House was actually uh, it was a good show. I liked it, but it was being backed by GE Healthcare, which all of the radiography equipment in there was like always GE brand, right? And New Amsterdam is basically like the lead character had Bernie Sanders' brain put into his, like a brain transplant, and all the decisions that he's making are about healthcare, are like, oh, fuck money, let's just give out healthcare. You know, that's basically who he is. So I like that show because it's not so much tied to the corporate sponsorships as other hospital shows have been. Let's see. Poseidon does not like the idea of California deciding things for the rest of the country because they are a hippie sanctuary. Um, Rubber Wilbur says uh, if they stopped corporations donating candidates, you wouldn't have just two powerful parties. I don't know that. I don't know that because the corporations would find a way to make their money push that candidate. Okay? They would find a way to make it work. Like the corporations deciding to donate a box of food to everyone in Flint, Michigan, with a crate of water to accompany it, and then that corporation uh, finding a way to associate themselves with the candidate that doesn't spend a lot of money. So there's two separate events, right? The donation of the supplies to some needy people, and then them uh, giving some funds to that candidate. But people would be able to connect the dots in a way that they'll get around the laws, right? And they'll make it look like that candidate made them make that decision, and you know it it'll get worked around just like every other campaign finance reform thing. Uh, Spurgleberry Farm wants to know, in this video, did I talk about mental health and reducing killing sprees? Yes, in so much as I'm for psychological screenings when people get their background checks done, not just a background check on whether or not they've ever had a psychological issue, but I'm in favor of a psychological screening uh, for them right uh, either as they're getting a concealed carry permit or even when they are purchasing a firearm, they should maybe have had a recent screening for psychological health, which other countries do. So let's see. Also, not just at the point of sale, but maybe in order to maintain licenses and concealed carry permits and all, you should maybe do some regular screenings to see if things changed in your life because people aren't just stressed out killers uh, just when they buy guns. Maybe sometimes it happens years down the road. These guys are talking about plague and how they should be able to use guns to, you know, kill prairie dogs, which, yeah, one of my friends actually caught the plague once, and his armpits swelled up really, really bad. He was in pain, and basically it was like he had the cold, the common cold, but like worse. But he had painful fucking swelling right there, and he got it from walking through a field in Colorado Springs where he was trying to cut across a field to get to the airport. So the way the airport is at the city, like there's this long drive that gets to the airport. Really, you could, if you're walking, just cut right through this empty field, and that's what he did, and that's where he got it. I'm not saying licensing guns exiled because that would be uh, infringing, right? You can't license guns or uh, the ability to have babies, right? But you could restrict the types of weapons people could have versus others, maybe, which is a thing already. And you could do the special instances like concealed carry permits should have, uh, you know, some sort of psychological screening attached to the process. Let's see. Should Hillary publicly announce that she's volunteering her services and run as the VP for whoever will be the eventual nominee? Well, if she's power hungry, and that's, I guess, a stupid caveat, but she would be the first female vice president, which it's not the president, but, um, you know, but I don't know that it would be a positive because I think people have moved on. I think she had her shot, and just like John Kerry, John Kerry also should be trying to run for president because he has the stank of a loss on him. Uh, Kamala is the new Hillary. Um, what should I say about Kamala Harris and her attack on Joe Biden? What I'll say is this: to me, it was further evidence that if you are on the left, there's a social justice warrior tactic where if you are a straight, white, heteronormative male who has done a hell of a lot for every other minority group, you can still be chastised just as bad as Rush Limbaugh would on a stage if you have failed to do whatever certain thing. And I'm glad that Joe Biden, after being torn a new one by Kamala Harris, was able to state for the record to the audience all of his uh, civil rights advancing stances and positions and achievements over his career. But you know, I don't know that people are going to look those up. I mean, he lost in polling almost immediately. You know, the polls over the next week have been showing that she really uh, tore a lot of steam out of his engine. Um, that's putting it lightly. Trying to keep it monetizable here, right? She really, really bit into him on that one issue of busing and completely uh, basically ruined his credentials, even though he was the vice president for our first black president. He was willing to run with him, and he was the one who worked to further so many causes that came right out of his mouth as a response. But that one issue, and Kamala Harris just looking like you sold us down the river, and I was one of those little girls, yeah, and you know, it's all for nothing. And to me, that's just that's politics, social justice 101. You know, no matter how much you do, that moment that you have a disagreement, you have done nothing. And all of your achievements can be thrown out the window the minute you have a disagreement or, in this case, failed to do something in the past, which was how many fucking years ago? You know, for certain people, growth is not an option. Uh, Anything in your history where you were not as woke as people are required to be in 2019, if it's out there on the internet, it will be found, and you will be guilty of it still today. Spurgleberry Farm wants to know why not teach CBT and anger management skills as an approach to reducing spree and other killings. If it were mandated in high school and college, a lot of the population would get valuable training. I agree. And I said as much that measures to promote mental health and measures that promote jobs will bring down gun violence. And they're a very uh, roundabout way of treating the problem, but they are also, to me, uh, gun control measures. They might not be directly anti gun, but they're anti gun violence in that they bring down the number of deaths that happen. Um, I am going to go to sleep now because I want to get some stuff done tomorrow. But I will be doing another live stream within the week. And it'll also probably be not announced at all. You'll have to be just up and be one of those special people that saw it. And you'll be like, oh man, I was at the fireworks display. Why are you gonna try to broadcast while I'm out with my family watching fireworks? And I'll be like, I wasn't watching the fireworks. So yeah, as soon as I can figure out how to turn off the stream, we are done.